So you're thinking of buying a home. There's all kinds of houses out there, different types of homes. And I'm not talking about style. I'm talking about the types of homes and the way you'll purchase them. Types of purchases. It's the real estate show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. I am the owner-broker of Zone Realty, LLC. You zone your home. Houses, they come up for sale, right? You're a buyer. You're looking to buy a house. You're also going to possibly finance a house. You want to make sure that when you find the house you want to purchase, that it's the biggest bang for the buck. In other words, you're going to get the most value for the money you're going to lay out to purchase that home. Now, different homes come on the market for sale in different ways, different types of purchases that you can make when you're buying a home. And what I'm specifically talking about is the resale home, which is just a house that a seller puts up for sale and the owner's still involved. The foreclosure, which is when a loan has defaulted and the bank has stepped in and the house is being foreclosed on, either with the owner in place or not. The real estate owned property, which is when the bank has already taken title and now the bank itself is selling the house. There's also something called an auction. When a home has been abandoned or a home has been returned to the bank or whatever the situation is, sometimes the home will go up for auction, and there's a way to purchase those. There's also the pre-foreclosure type house. This is what we call a short sale. And there are certain things that are involved in a short sale process. Now, all of these types of purchases may mean that you're going to pay market value, over market value, or under market value when it comes to purchasing a house. So you need to be really sharp. Talk to your realtor. Understand what the different types of purchases are. Talk to a mortgage officer as far as how those houses will be financed. Get all the information you need as you're out and you're shopping. You don't want to discount certain houses because they've been foreclosed on or because they're going up for auction or whatever. But timing sometimes is the key. Now, I want to spend some time on the show and kind of blow up and talk a little bit more about these certain types of purchases. And I like to target the short sale. What is a short sale? A short sale is when you have the opportunity to purchase a house that is being sold for less than what's owed on it. Now, you understand that when someone puts their house up for sale, most likely, in a lot of cases, that person has a mortgage on the house. And they have to sell the house for enough money to not only meet their needs, for whatever reason there might be, they're retiring, they're purchasing another home, whatever, but they have to pay off that mortgage. Even if you're in a position to purchase a home cash, it has to be of a dollar amount that allows them to accomplish that. Now, there are certain homes where there's a debt on the home and the market will not support the price that the house would need to be sold at in order to pay off that mortgage. So this is when a short sale starts to happen. In other words, the owner has gone to their lender and asked if it would be possible for them to sell the home for less than what they owe. Now, the seller, of course, is going to give up any potential equity they've earned in the house, and they're going to give up a lot of different things when it comes to the selling of the house. And most likely, they're going to sell the house in as-is condition, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in a short sale, you have not only the owner of the house involved, but you also have the lender of the house involved. And the lender, by the way, folks, that can be the primary bank, the first mortgage holder. There could be a second mortgage holder. There could be liens on the house for repair work that was done and never paid. There could be taxes on the house that aren't paid. There's a lot of different things that get involved. So it's going to take a while for the lender, who's now the decision maker, to decide whether or not they want to take a loss on the home if it is sold. So if you're looking to purchase a house, a pre-foreclosure or a short sale, you've got to be in the mind frame that you're going to have to wait. I've been involved in short sales over the years, folks, and I've had them take a long time. The longest one I have in my personal record from beginning to end was 14 weeks. 14 weeks, I mean, that's a long time. I've heard other stories where it's taken more than 90 days, more than 120 days. I even had a realtor share with me a story where a short sale she was doing took a year to get to the closing table. And this is because the processes that are involved and the different lenders that have to get involved and who's got to agree to take what loss and so on and so forth. Sometimes a short sale's denied too, so it won't happen. What's that do for you, the buyer, though? You're able to purchase the home usually under market value for a lower price than if the house were a normal resale style house. Now I want to talk about foreclosures in general. When a home goes under foreclosure, there's different types of foreclosures that can happen. And I could do a whole show talking about strict foreclosures and foreclosures by sale and, like I just mentioned, the pre-foreclosures and all the different situations. The bottom line is when a house is being foreclosed on, it means the seller has defaulted. Now, sometimes the seller is not out of the house. So you have to be careful because you're not going to go approach the seller directly. You're going to go through the realtor or through the listing agency or however that house has been put up for sale. Those sales may take a while also because there's a lot involved. You see, when something goes into foreclosure, it's now not the seller of the house that's making the decision to accept your offer or not if they're looking at it. It has to go on to the lender. And as I said earlier, there could be other people that are involved, second mortgage, lien holders, and so on and so forth. So you have to be able to be patient. Is a foreclosure home a better buy than a normal resale home or a bank-owned home? Possibly. But again, educate yourself. Talk to your realtor. Learn the ins and outs. And remember, you have to have patience. I put together this little presentation that talks about the resale home. This is the normal type of procedure. I'm a seller. I've put my house on the market. I'm looking to get this price. Buyer comes in, makes an offer that I accept as the seller, and we go through the transaction as normal. The resale home. Let's take a look. Let's say you find a home and it's a house that's been foreclosed on. It's been sitting there vacant for a while and you can't find who has the house that they're looking to sell. Now, sometimes it's very easy. A foreclosure house will have a big sign out in front that says this house has been foreclosed on. Or maybe the loan has been taken over by Housing and Urban Development, or what they call a HUD house. And HUD now owns the house and has put it up for sale. Or the bank has their sign on it and you see that this house is being sold by one of the major banks. And either way, those houses sometimes, if they don't sell, will go to auction. Now, what happens with an auction house? First of all, you have to be in a position to be able to put up some cash. It's very difficult to buy a house that goes up for auction and try to get a loan. Now, you can pay cash for the house and make a bid and maybe win the auction, and then after you own the house, look to put a mortgage on it. But again, when you're getting lenders involved, it changes the whole idea on how things are put together. The issue with auction type houses is there's a ton of bidders that are out there. There are investors that have cash available. So it's very competitive. There's a certain date, a certain time, a certain period of time when you're going to be able to put a bid or an offer on a house. And then it goes through channels. You'll see those auction bids, they're announced in the newspaper, or maybe you find out through a realtor or whatever. But you've got to be able to have cash in hand. Auction houses are sold as is, as you see them, with all their warts and pimples. Nothing's been done. Sometimes they're uninhabitable. Other times they're houses that have good bones, but they need a ton of work. They may have an environmental issue like lead paint or asbestos wrapped pipes or furnaces. So be careful if you look to go the auction route. There are other types of ways of purchasing a home when you're looking at standard mortgages. Now, of course, there's all kinds of mortgages that are out there, folks. You know that you have conventional mortgages and construction loan mortgages and what they call a 203K rehab program. They have all kinds of different ways of financing a home, but the basic thing is you've got to be able to be purchasing a home that passes the FHA requirements. The FHA requirements are that the house has to be habitable, it's got to be safe, and it can't have any structural issues. Let's take a look at this little presentation about foreclosures and auctions, and I'll be back to talk about a different type of purchase, as I've mentioned, the as-is. I want to talk about the as-is sale. What is as-is? Is it something as a buyer you should be afraid of, or is it something you want to actually look for? Now, first of all, when a seller is putting their house on the market for sale, and they want to sell the house as is, Basically, they're communicating that we've priced the house with all of its problems. We've taken those into consideration, and we know our house needs repairs and updating, but we can't afford to do it. We want to sell the house as it is. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make your offer, that you can't do a home inspection, that you can't do the normal things you would do in a regular real estate transaction. But you have to remember that the house is being sold where it is, as it is. You're taking it for what you see. The seller is not going to negotiate on doing any kind of repairs because they don't have the ability to do that. Now, is an as-is home a high-risk purchase? Depends on what you're getting into. Again, you have to be very careful. You even have banks sometimes selling the foreclosed property as is. In other words, they're not going to take the responsibility to do any repairs. You can buy those houses at a pretty good price because they do need a lot of work. But again, if you're going to purchase a house that's as is and you're going to put a mortgage on it, you want to make sure it meets those FHA requirements like I showed in that previous presentation. As is purchases you need to go into with your eyes wide open. Now, sometimes an as-is purchase may require that you do more work than you intended to want to do. I've related here on the real estate show my personal experience as a realtor. I purchased the house that I'm in right now as is. It was a foreclosed property that I purchased through the HUD program. It was priced under market. It was getting ready to go up on auction because the house had sat vacant for almost 3 years. And HUD decided to try and sell it through a listing agency. So a realtor got involved and listed the house for sale. When I went and I looked at the house was very dated. It was built in 1950. I bought the house in 2022. For all those years, 70 plus years, the owner of the house basically did nothing. The house was stuck in time. It was an old house. Not as old as some houses in Connecticut, but it was an old house. It needed a lot of work. The bathroom was very, very dated. The kitchen was tremendously dated. It had appliances in it dating from the 1950s. If they were in working condition, they might have been collectibles. The basement was a wreck. The fireplaces didn't work. The chimney needed repointing. The yard was all overgrown. I mean, the house was short of a disaster. And I knew that if I purchased the house as is, I was going to have to do all that work. So I had to find a special loan package, a construction via 203K rehab style loan with a lender to give me the monies that were needed to purchase the home to do all the repairs. And it took a while to get that mortgage, which was a lot of work to put together. And then it took another additional couple of months in order to make the house habitable for me to be able to move in and continue with the work myself. So patience was a big key in purchasing this as-is style home. And I can relate that in more detail to buyers when I'm working with them if they're looking at as-is types of purchase. Now, when you're buying a home as is, you have to realize that it also means that if you take on that property, you're going to be responsible for any of the liens or any of the problems that are on the house. The seller has no way of being able to take care of those things. So even though you might buy it for a little less, the as-is property over the long term may cost you more than if you buy just a resale property. Let's look at this presentation that talks about the as-is purchase. I've been talking a lot here on the Real Estate Show about types of purchases. The resale house, the foreclosure house, sometimes auction houses, as-is sales, and short sales. There's all different types of ways of financing homes when you're looking to purchase a house. And you have to be very careful about how you're going to go about to do it. Because remember, unless you're buying something for cash, and even if you are buying something for cash, you're taking on a huge responsibility. You're taking on a huge project. So if you're in a position where you can buy for cash and you don't have to get a lender involved, so you don't have that second party making a decision on whether or not you're going to get the house, you also have to make sure you have the reserves to do all the work that needs to be done. And I always say, whenever you go in and you look at a house, no matter what the house situation is, it's being sold by an owner, it's a vacant property, it's abandoned property, it's auction, foreclosure, it's on a short sale, whatever the situation is, you always want to keep in mind the 3 rules of whether or not a house is financeable. And I mentioned that earlier in the show, and that's what we call the FHA requirements. First of all, as you're going through the house, is the house safe? In other words, are there any safety issues? When I bought my house, folks, the electrical box was from the 1950s. It had those screw-in glass fuses. That box had to be immediately updated to circuit breakers in order for me to even obtain insurance on the house. So that was a safety issue. The receptacles were all out of date. None of them were grounded. That was a safety issue. So I had to be aware of all that stuff. So it didn't qualify for a normal FHA loan because of safety. The other issue is the property secure? In other words, is it habitable? Can you occupy the property and live in the property where you're protected? In other words, the house doesn't have a big hole in the roof or holes in the wall. You know, you're protected from the outside elements. That the heating system works, or the air conditioning system works, or the electricity works, or the water works, and so on and so forth. So that's the other thing you have to be considerate of. And the third thing is structural. Is the house structurally sound? In other words, it's not going to fall down on you. It's safe to move into, it provides you with protection, and it doesn't have any structural defects. If it meets all 3 of those requirements, you may be able to put a loan on it. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy it for cash and take the risk of whatever that situation might be. So, different ways of purchasing homes, different types of purchases. That on top of just deciding on the house you want to buy and the style, whether it's a Cape Colonial, a raised ranch, contemporary, or whatever it might be. There are some great buys still out there, but the inventories are still low. So be very careful on the house that you choose and the financing that you're looking to put on the house based on the type of purchase you're looking to make. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been The Real Estate Show. I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Nick Augustino right here at the East Side Restaurant. We always have the complete full dinner menu. Knockwurst, bratwurst, sauerbraten, potato pancakes, red cabbage, rice pudding, cream pies, all the desserts that Germany had to offer. I always do something different. Yes, I do. I brought seafood to the beer garden at the East Side Restaurant. East Side Restaurant, your German destination restaurant in Connecticut. Tiki-taka, hoy, hoy, hoy!